Hey, welcome to the show. The channel is I Don't Know What I'm Doing. Basically, I have taken projects that are around the house that you watch YouTube videos on, and we try to recreate what they have done for our particular project. In this case, it is a garbage disposal that has broken. This one here is the Waste King. Bought it several years ago. I put it in, and if I remember right, it had a universal connection, much like this one here, which you put into the sink, and then you just take the unit and you set it on there, spin it around, and it connects, and it's a nice tight seal and everything like that. Like I say, I don't remember if this is a universal connection that I've got underneath the sink. It was several years ago. So fingers crossed, all it is just disconnect, unplug, put the other one in, connect, plug up. If not, then we're going to be going through the process of putting this thing in. I've read the instructions. I've watched a couple of YouTube videos on this. I've got all of the tools that are needed to do this job, but we'll see how it goes because this is a different model. There are different shapes to it, so we may or may not get this thing done as easily as other YouTubers end up doing it. We'll find out. First off, though, I'm going to unplug it. Now, before I get too much further into this, I want to point this out. This is not my work right here. All of this foam stuff is because we had rats coming in through here, and we put a bunch of steel wool and foam in here, and they stopped coming through. But they were coming in here when I first bought the house, and this was my solution on a budget. So don't judge me. But this right here, the line is open. You cannot close this line, not without cutting it completely at the source. Don't ever, if you're ever putting anything in, don't ever do that. This one here is closed. This is a drain that goes up to my existing disposal. I'm going to disconnect this, and like I said, I'm going to unplug this. So we're going to open that up and unplug it. I know this is a little bit of overkill for a under the sink plug. I did this when I put in this disposal right here. I know, like I say, it's overkill, but it's hardwired underneath the sink where water could drip on it. I made it as safe as I could by putting in an outdoor plug with a cap or a cover and everything on it. The history of this house, I would rather be safe than sorry. That's why that's there. So the disposal is unplugged right now. We're about to disconnect this. So that will be able to pop out. And then to take the disposal the rest of the way out before I start trying to unscrew it, I'm going to disconnect this, which, like I said, is a drain that goes from this unit down into the sewer lines of the house. So give me a moment. I'm going to go off camera and do that. All right, I just wanted to show you something real quick on this thing right here. I got it disconnected, and I don't know if you can see that, but that's a lot of gunk in there. Who knows how clogged that line is. So before I put the new one on there, I think I may snake this thing out a little bit, run a little bit of Mean Green or Drano or whatever we have here at the house to try to clean that out, because that just cannot be good. All right, I have got the disposal out, and there's where the drain pipe goes into, this piece right here. We'll talk about that one when we're installing. But my biggest problem right now, and I was afraid of this is not a universal connection. If you compare the two, you can see there are similarities, but there are vast differences. All right, let's talk about the universal flange thing here. This thing here is not that complicated. It's just several layers of things that will come apart. I'll spread them out and look at them here in a moment. But the key part of it is this right here. This is where the new unit is going to take, and when you put it in, it's going to pop up here, and then you're going to turn it and it's going to slide along that track. And as you can see, the track is graduated. So it's graduated or gratiated? Graduated. So it's going to get tighter as it goes up until it locks into a spot right up here where there's a little bitty notch that's going to hold it. But I'm going to have to take all of this apart, take all of this out so that this can go in to the sink as the new universal flange piece. So the disposal is out, the sink flange is out, and the piece that we're going to put in here is the Moen The Prep 1/2 horsepower GXP 50C Pro. And I've got it ready to put in there. This is, we'll get to that in a moment. This is the flange that's going to have to go in there. Now there is this ring here which separates, and you can just pop that off with a simple screwdriver, but you'll have to put that piece back in. It is followed by this right here, which I have loosened up so that it's not hindering anything. It is blocked by coming off with this ring, which actually goes around the final piece, but you want to make sure that you keep this stuff in order. The fancy daisy looking thing here is next, followed by a cardboard gasket, and then finally this one right here. And this little groove here is where that ring there goes around. It's what kind of ties the whole thing together. Now this piece right here, you might recognize it looking at it that way. It goes into the sink, and then you assemble everything from the bottom, but this goes on the top. And you want to put plumber's putty in here. Make sure you have good fresh plumber's putty, and you use a generous amount of it, because you don't want your sink to leak and cause damage like I've got down here from God knows how many years. So this piece right here is the top of your sink. This is what you're going to see, what you're going to put your food down and everything. And I have taken a few minutes to knead the plumber's putty into a rope, and then I've been pressing it steadily into here, into these grooves, or into this corner rather, trying to make sure that I have a nice tight seal all the way around it. It's good to take your time with this. I'm going to tell you that right now. You'll want to. Now, the next couple of steps are going to involve this piece right here. So when you put this into the, you can see it there. When you put this into the sink, right side up, this is going to have that sticker facing out towards you, straight out towards you. And that's going to be your reference point. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the old garbage disposal, and after I press this in, because I want this putty to leak out along the seam of the sink right here. If it's not pressed out and I don't have any of it, squeezing out on that seam, I don't have a good seal. But I'm going to use, once I get it pressed in by hand, I'm going to put the old garbage disposal on top of it just to kind of weight it down until I get the other pieces, the fancy daisy, the whatever this thing is that holds it, and then the snap ring back into place. Okay, I've got the flange in place, and this is the overflow that I'm talking about. I know I've got a good seal all the way around here because it's sticking out, and I put it on pretty thick. The instructions said 1/2 inch rope and ½ inch rope of putty rather. And so now I'm going to put the old disposal on top of this, and we're going to work from the bottom. Okay, I've got this thing on here. I'm up underneath the sink, and it all pretty much slides on there pretty smoothly. Hoping you can see this. There's the gasket on here, then this daisy-shaped thing, and then this, and the ring, you can see, is right there. One of the things I'd like to point out is these screws right here. When they were screwed forward up into this, making this daisy piece snug up against the sink bottom, it was almost impossible to get this ring on, so I ended up having to take and screw them almost all the way out. Now I'm going to take and screw them all the way in to make them snug so that everything here is pressed up the way it should be, and pulling the sink drain down and pressing that putty out even more. Can't do that holding the camera, so I'm going to turn it off and start screwing all of this stuff in to place. So I'll be back. So I've got this thing put in here. It's screwed as tight as I can get it. Something that I will tell you, I used a screwdriver with a rather long shaft to it, and it made working on the screw that was back here a little bit difficult with this right here, being on my back and trying to get in there. So I would recommend a slightly smaller shafted Phillips head, at least for this operation. When I put this thing in, these screws I actually just hand tightened until they were snug, and then I went with the screwdriver and started tightening them up. Now we're going to start with the unit itself, and that is going to be, excuse me, it's a mess. Like I said, I hope I've got these things lined up so that this right here, these rings, fit into that slot and go up that groove to tighten it right next to it. The pieces that we've got to worry about is right in here, there's a plug that has to be knocked out. And they say don't use a screwdriver because you could probably punch through it. So they recommend that you get a dowel rod, and of course the dowel rod that I got is much too big. So we're going to end up having to come up with either a blunt screwdriver and go slow, or I don't know. Anyway, got to get that out, and then we're going to put the elbow joint here into this thing and hopefully screw it into place and plug it up, and it'll work and everything will be good. But nothing ever works that easy, of course. We'll find out. All right, I got a smaller dowel that will fit into the hole. Why they put these plugs in here, I have no idea. A soft plug would make a whole lot more sense instead of this PVC stuff, but that's what they put in there, and you got to hammer it out, and that's what I did. I tried to pry it with a screwdriver, and that was going nowhere. So anyway, I've got that remember the gunky tube right there? That's going to go onto this. It's going to slide onto there after I clean it out a little bit. And then I'm going to take that hose clamp, and tighten it down. But next I'm going to try to take and put this up there on the universal collar, and and try to get it into a position to where the elbow joint is coming out of this thing that way and going into the receptor. there's a gasket that you want put up nice and close to that. You don't want it back like that. Once that gasket is nice and snug, you can take this, and it looks like it goes in kind of universally. Yeah. So. One thing to remember, you don't tighten anything all the way up. You just kind of get it snug in place. And the reason I say that is because once you put this thing in, you may have to turn it a little bit one way or the other just to make it fit. And let's see just what kind of luck I'm going to have. There is, for this right here, you're going to want to put that cap on there. And then there's this little bitty gasket thing, which is tapered. And you want the tapered part down, because it's going to go inside of your drain. Okay. Son of a bun. Okay, I can tell I'm going to start cussing for a little bit here, so I'm going to turn this off. Okay, so there was quite a bit of cussing involved. It took, like I said, I had to kind of press this or pull this piece right here in a little bit using the elbow joint just to get this thing seated up in here. And I've just barely got it locked. Sorry about that. I'm gonna have to take this a screwdriver, stick it in here, and turn it to lock it into place. Give me just a moment. Find my screwdriver. And I apologize for the view. Okay, I had to double hand this thing. I do apologize for not being able to show you, but the screwdriver did go in here. And while I pulled on this way, I also took one of these little hooks that the screwdriver goes into on the other side and just also kind of pulled it with my thumb and turned the whole thing around. So now, sorry about all that shaky video. Now I can seat this, and that's going to go down in there, that little gasket. And then I just take this and I turn it until it is nice and snug. Hand tight is really all you really need with this. So that's set. The last piece is going to be this right here, and it's going to be with the nasty hose, which I'm going to take and get some Drano or something and put in there to clean that out a little bit. So be right back. Okay, so to recap everything, I have put some green goblin, whatever it is, down into this tube because you saw it was just nasty. I've slid it back onto here where we popped out that plug, and I've tightened this pipe clamp up so that it is nice and firm on there. The drain pipe is connected again, and I now have it plugged up into my protected outdoor outlet, which I installed on the inside. Next thing that we're going to do is take the old garbage disposal out of the sink, remove the excess putty. And you see the excess putty right here came squishing out. This is all you really have to do with it. And we should be pretty much good to go after that. So let's run some water. I don't see any leaks. Seems to be running nicely. This is Thomas. I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I did a pretty decent job this time. Tell me what you think in the comments. Subscribe. Tell me what other stuff you would like for future videos.